Welcome to Rethinking Communication. I'm your host, Michael Ashford. Come with me on a journey as I explore how we better connect with each other through the power of our words. For most of us, formal education left gaps in our ability to communicate well with each other, especially when trying to navigate conflict, inspire change, and overcome misunderstandings. I'm a former journalist, a speaking coach, and a communication expert, and my goal is to encourage you to rethink what it means to be an effective communicator, from the stage to the meeting room to the living room and everywhere in between. Welcome back to Rethinking Communication and my 6-part series on the communication skills to improve in the age of AI. If this is your first time listening to an episode here of Rethinking Communication, I encourage you to go back to part 1 of this series where I talked about the skill of storytelling, and then part 2 where I talked about the skill of impromptu speaking. Before we get into part 3 here, I want to remind you, sign up for my newsletter at michaelashford.com/newsletter. That link is in the show notes. Once a month, I send you newsletters where I expand on an idea that I've either talked about on the show or I've talked about on LinkedIn, all as it relates to communication and improving your communication skills. And that's what we're here to do in this 6-part series and across this podcast. I hope it's been a helpful one for you so far, and I'm excited to get into part 3, where we're going to talk about asking questions, one of my favorite things to do. So let's get into it. I want to kick off part 3 here by telling you 2 quick stories. The first, the company that I work for just was acquired in early January 2026. And we've been going through the process of integrating the 2 companies together. We, as the acquired company, all of us as employees, we've been learning about the new product, the new software that the company that acquired us has that we'll be transitioning all of our customers to. And recently, this last week, we all sat in on a bunch of demonstrations to learn that software, to get a feel for it, to see how it works, to see how it's different from ours. It was a chance for us to ask all the questions that we have, really getting some clarity on what our customers are going to experience. And after those demonstrations, the project manager who's running the integration for these 2 companies and the merging of them and coming together, I was in our office and she poked her head into the space where I was at. I was actually in our studio. And she just said, "Hey, I want you to know you ask really great questions." And I just said, "Thanks so much. I love asking questions, but I appreciate it." She's like, "You really do. You ask great questions." I'm going to come back to that in just a second, but let's leave that story there. And let's jump backwards a few years to late 2022. I'm a TEDx speaking coach. I'm the head speaking coach at an event called TEDx Manitou Springs here in Colorado. And I'm the curator. So I'm the one choosing all of the speakers for our events. And it was actually the night before one of our TEDx events. We all got together, all the speakers, their spouses and partners, all the volunteers that were going to help run the event the next day. And at this particular event, we were in this bar area, and I sat down with one of our speakers and her husband. And he was explaining to me, or he had let me know, that he had just left his job to go into trading stocks on his own. I, having never traded a stock in my life, I just turned everything over to my financial planner and say, "Hey, you go do this. Send me the reports each month." But he very much cared about it. This gentleman that I was speaking to, he absolutely was thrilled and excited. He has just launched into this new thing. He had left his job to do this. And here in this back and forth, I sat back and just viewed my role in this conversation as one of asking him questions. Now, I got to be honest, I don't care about trading stocks. It's not my passion. It's not the thing that I am interested in. Like I said, I turn things over to my financial planner, but he was. And in that moment, I saw my role as the one to bring out and continue to build on his excitement simply by asking him great questions, questions that let him run with his excitement and let him bring all that he knew and all that he was learning to light. And after that conversation, where I literally just asked him questions for 15, 20 minutes, we had the event the next day. And then a couple of days after the event, I got an email from that speaker who said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know, thank you for all your help at the event, but I also wanted to let you know my husband was talking about what a great conversation that he had with you the other day. And I just wanted to say thank you. It really meant a lot to him." Now, what happened in both of those situations? Well, if you know the whole point of this part of this series, it was about asking questions. It was about leading with my curiosity. It was about leaning into curiosity in a way that others noticed. In the event of that speaker's husband in that conversation, questions were an unlock to small talk. If you struggle with small talk, if those moments before a meeting or at networking events feel, oh, I don't know, fake, they feel performative, they feel like, oh, I don't know what to say next, we're always talking about the same thing. Questions are a way to help you navigate those conversations, because guess what? You don't have to say anything other than ask the next question. And in the instance of the demonstrations that I was sitting through, where I got told afterwards that I was asking really great questions, whenever you plant in someone's mind that you are a type of person that can get great information out of people, who can open up thoughtful curiosity to an entire group of people sitting in a room, that makes an impact. That is seen, that is noticed. And in the age of AI, I fear we are outsourcing our curiosity to things that can't see what we see, can't do what we do, can't point our curiosity at others in the ways that we can. Instead of what I see a lot of us doing is we're turning our curiosity into becoming AI prompting agents, where we're just trying to figure out, well, what's the right way to get this answer that I'm looking for out of this answer engine? And in a lot of ways, that's great. Data analysis, creating information, distilled information from a lot of data and information, great. I love that. And I think AI prompting in those instances are great. But far too often, I'm seeing us outsource our curiosity and our ability to be in the moment and help bring others along with our curiosity, with the questions that we're asking. I'm seeing us outsourcing that to ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. Asking great questions is absolutely a skill and is absolutely something that can help you create a space for yourself and for others in the room. And that includes digitally as well. I know a lot of our meetings take place on Zoom or on Google Meet or on Teams these days. But if you can be the one to open up the room with the questions that you ask, you will be seen as a phenomenal communicator. And listen, the questions that you ask don't have to be these intense, deeply worded, like really extreme. I don't know where I'm going with that. These questions don't have to be complicated, really, the way that I wanted to say that. They can be as simple as, well, can you tell me more about that? When somebody's got a complaint or an issue that they've brought to you, and your initial instinct is to go solve it or to search for an answer of what to do in that situation, but instead taking a moment to pause and saying, okay, I think I'm hearing you, but can you tell me more? I'm interested. Your questions can be as simple as, what do you mean? They can be as simple as, why? How did that happen? Have you thought about? What do we think about? Again, not complicated questions, but we often have a rush to find and figure out the answer right away. We tend to optimize for the solving and the solution rather than the exploration and the curiosity, the information gathering. And that's what questions can help you do. When you show up as one to ask questions before jumping into problem solving mode, you are the one creating the space for us to take a step back, us in the room, to take a step back and really think through the problem set, the challenges that we have. Or you can be the one to uncover and bring forward unspoken emotion. A lot of times, when faced with conflict, with faced with a difficult decision, and this is not just at work, this is as much in relationships as well. When met with backlash or when met with kind of this head-butting mentality or friction, it's often because of unspoken emotions that lie just beneath the surface, and questions can help bring them to light. They can, again, give space to bring them forward so that we actually understand what it is we're arguing about, or what it is that we're actually trying to solve, or what might be the unspoken roadblocks to moving forward with this thing, this conversation, this relationship, this decision that we have. Instead, I see us either outsourcing our curiosity to things like AI and ChatGPT. And by the way, it's not just AI. We've been saying, well, Google that for as long as Google has been around now. But it is an outsourcing of our curiosity, a disregard for staying in the moment and trying to figure things out as human beings that I'm concerned with. But it is also, when we do ask questions, a sort of weaponization of those questions, where we don't ask truly curious questions, where instead we insert our biases, we insert our unspoken emotions, we insert our agenda into the questions that we're asking, and it becomes a tense and perhaps even unfair conversation. When your questions back someone into a corner and they become unanswerable, no matter what answer is given. When questions are delivered in such a way that they're intended to cut at the person, they're intended to take a chunk from that person, that can feel unfair in those moments. And if we don't do a good job of communicating through those emotions, again, uncovering the emotions that lie beneath the surface that are often unspoken, then we risk doing real damage with the questions that we ask. And what do I mean by this? A weaponized question tends to sound like, well, you believe this, don't you? So we're answering the question within the question. We're giving them an unfair option or a predetermined option. We're placing our thoughts and opinions on somebody else. Another unfair or weaponized question might seem or sound like, did you know that what you did right there was going to hurt me? Is that why you did it? Again, there's blame within that question. There is intent assumed in that question that, if you know anything about me and if you've listened or read my book, listened to this podcast or read my book, you know I love to go in and I encourage to go into especially conflicty situations, assuming positive intent of other people. But when we weaponize our questions, that gets lost. That assumption of positive intent gets lost. This can be in relationships. This can be at work. This can be in so many. This can be in conversations on social media, which, by the way, that's a whole different subject that I am not going to touch in this. I'm talking about in person or face to face as much as possible, live communication here. Asking questions, not outsourcing your curiosity to AI, and being the one to uncover emotion, unspoken thoughts, unspoken feelings within a conversation, place you within a communicative paradigm that shifts the room. The assumption of positive intent, a question leading with that might sound like, and by the way, it is totally fair to acknowledge your emotions before asking a question. It might sound like, what you just said actually didn't sit right with me. What was your intent? Or that decision seems unfair because of this, this, and this. Can you help me understand more of what are you thinking? What's your logic behind making this choice over the other options available? What other options did you consider here? Simple as that. When you can be the one to introduce curiosity into the room, no, I'm starting to repeat myself here, but it's so important for how you are seen by others and the value that you can absolutely bring to a conversation. And I don't want to leave behind small talk either. It's incredibly important. And if you struggle with your confidence in those situations, if you struggle with knowing what to say in those situations, just ask the next easiest question. And I know I say that, just ask. It's more difficult than it is, but practice this. Practice asking questions. Practice pointing your curiosity at problems, at people, at emotions, spoken or unspoken, and you will become a more powerful and seen communicator in the workplace, at home, in relationships, no matter where you're at. Because here's the thing, AI cannot ask those same questions that you have running through your mind. It simply can't. It simply cannot call the room to stop and consider how decisions were made. It cannot stop and ask the person across from you to explain the emotion that went into something they just said, positive or negative. You being the one to bring that forward, that is where communicative firepower lives. You know, in my book, Can I Ask a Question? I outline a way that we can think about our approach to conversations where we lead with curiosity. And I'll leave you with this. I'll leave you with that outline, but I encourage you to go check out my book. And I would greatly appreciate it if you even got a copy for yourself. It's a quick, easy read, I promise. It's available on Amazon. I'll put the link in the show notes there as well. But here's that outline. It's called the ask then see approach to communication, or conflict communication is often how I couch it in the book, but it really can apply to any type of conversation that you have. The ask and the see are both acronyms. Ask stands for assume positive intent. Already covered that one. Set aside your ego and know that you don't know everything. Setting aside your ego sets aside your need to be right and instead invites in curiosity. And knowing that you don't know everything, if you agree to that, if you agree that you don't know everything and that you aren't all knowing, then that invites in curiosity, because then there is always the possibility that you don't have the full story, that you don't know everything that's going on in and around a decision or what someone said. And so you have to invite in curiosity there. Wouldn't you want to know if there was something that you didn't know, that you didn't understand? Aligning yourself with knowing that you don't know everything can only mean that you invite in curiosity. Assume positive intent, set aside your ego, and know that you don't know everything. Then, when you get in that headspace, and that is a constant pullback to that headspace, it's a constant reminder of being there, even within a conversation itself, reminding yourself, orienting yourself around the idea of assumption of positive intent, coming in with no ego or as little as you can, and knowing that you don't know everything, leading with that curiosity, setting aside your certainty. Then we move to the question asking. We move to searching yourself. Before the conversation even begins, if you have time, ask questions of yourself. What do I believe? How did I come to those beliefs? What's been true in my life? What's been true in my career? What's been true in situations like this that I faced in the past? And what has been the outcome of those things? What might my biases be? Search yourself. Then explore other perspectives. Stay in your mind, but start asking yourself, if I had these experiences, if this was my experience, how might somebody else see it differently? The number one question to ask here is, what could I be missing? If you can ask that in so many different situations, even at work, where, like I said earlier, in that situation where we're just watching a software demo of a new, the company that acquired us, we're watching their software demonstration. If you just simply ask the question, what could I be missing here? I'm making some assumptions about what I know. Let's set those aside and let's ask, what could I be missing? And then turn that into a question to speak out loud. Search other perspectives. Finally, exchange your curiosity with others. Actually go ask the question. Actually point your curiosity at someone or something or the problem at hand, the emotions, as I've already covered, and ask questions. And again, to reiterate, this does not have to be a long, complicated, drawn-out question. Actually, in most instances, the shorter the better. Can you tell me more? What else did you consider? How did you come to that decision? I'm curious, what are you feeling right now? How did my decisions or how did my actions affect you? In all of those questions that I just rattled off there is an invitation rather than a weaponization. Rather than painting people or boxing people into a corner, you are inviting them forward to gain more of their perspective, to gain more of their experience, to gain more of their viewpoint. In some instances, like the speaker's husband that I spoke about, it was an invitation for him to be the expert in the room about something he was excited about. In the instance of the demonstrations with the acquiring company, it was to allow them, the people giving the demonstrations, it was allowing them a platform to showcase what they know, what they wanted to share. But also it was a chance for everyone else in the room to kind of sit back and say, all right, we don't know everything here, and there's a lot here, but we want to be curious because this is important to us. That's what questions can also tell people. A great question, a curious question can say, I care about this. This is important. I want to pull this forward. And when all we're doing is relying on AI and prompting AI with basic questions or questions to get the answers that we want, we risk atrophying our curiosity muscle. And I just want you to stay present in that space, no matter what space that you're in, and ask great questions. Thanks so much for listening to part 3 of this 6-part series, all about communicative skills that you should look to improve in the age of AI. I appreciate it. Come back next time where we're going to be talking about presence and observation, staying present, being an observer. Talked about this a little bit in the storytelling episode back in part 1, but now we're going to expand on it a little bit more, and we're going to talk about presence, which I just ended this episode with here. If you may have heard me talking about presence, it's my word of the year. I talked about it in a previous newsletter edition about my word of the year, being presence. We're going to expand on that here in part 4 coming up next week. So please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the newsletter. Jump down into the show notes. It's michaelashford.com/newsletter. Subscribe, and I will see you on the next episode of Rethinking Communication and part 4 of this 6-part series. And until then, as is so appropriate for today's episode topic, keep asking questions.